Hi there and welcome to our Victorian Department of Education webinar, Discover Microsoft 365. My name is Troy Waller. I am a learning delivery specialist and probably very much like you, I am coming to you from my home. I will say this up front that I've got kids and I've got dogs and I've got everything else going on. I've got planes flying over the top of me, so it's going to be prove to you that it's actually coming from home. I really hope that today is going to be quite useful for you. This is very much a beginner's course around Microsoft 365. So, if you've been in this space for a little while, I hope you're going to learn something new. But if you are brand new to it, then I hope you're going to learn lots and lots of things. Okay, so why don't we get going? So this is our Microsoft Remote Learning launching / landing page, aka.ms/Microsoft Remote Learning. I'd really like you to visit that, especially if you've got questions. You can actually type your questions in there. We're going to have Q&A in this webinar as well, which we'll talk about in a minute. But if you have questions after this webinar, or if you're watching the recording, then you can jump in there and you'll find there's a little button there you can click and you can talk to a real person. Excuse me, it might take you a little while for them to get back to you, but I promise you there's real people monitoring the end of that. Now, if you do want to access the slides and the links, the recordings and the links, that I'm going to mention today. The slides won't actually be there. Apologies for that, but it'll be the links and also the recording. Then please pop over to aka.ms/TroyYT. That's aka.ms/TroyYT. Now, talking about the Q&A, I've got someone special on the manning the Q&A for you today, and I'm going to let her come off mute and introduce herself and tell you about what she normally does and also what she's doing in the midst of this lockdown.
Thank you, Troy, for that great introduction. My name's Linda, and I'm normally a product advisor, but in the midst of this, unprecedented times, I am in part of the Engaged Communities team, so I help also support and help deliver workshops like this. And I'll be happy to answer any of your questions in the chat, and I'll be your moderator for this session. Thank you, Troy.
Excellent, great. So there is a little Q&A button you'll see there. If you just click on that, you can type your questions in, and some of them Linda will do her best to answer for you on the spot, and others she might actually feed to me, especially if it's sort of a recurring question. All right, so let's keep going. So this is our webinar agenda for the day, and I'm sure you can hear that plane flying over the top of me. Forgive me for that. So we're going to look at the Microsoft Educator community, which is your online portal. We're going to, for professional development, I should say, we're going to look at the difference between Office and Office 365 or Office in the cloud. We're going to talk about some Office software that's free that you probably didn't know that you had access to as a department teacher or as a Victorian teacher. We're going to log into Office 365 or Microsoft 365. Then we're going to do a bit of an overview and have a look around. We're going to talk about OneDrive. We're going to talk about Teams. Then I'll give you some next steps to continue your learning, and that's where we'll wrap. So we have this website called the Microsoft Educator Center, and the web address is there, education.microsoft.com. I might even get Linda to pop that into the chat for you, but it's education.microsoft.com. Please notice there's no www. Now, I'm going to take you in. Here it is. Okay, so this is the Microsoft Educator Center. You can see that the banner is saying it's Teacher Appreciation Week, so you know we're live. So, but if you're watching this in a webinar, I hope you had a great Teacher Appreciation Week, whenever that was for you. Now, we have three main areas. I know it says four, but there's three main areas I want to draw your attention to. The first one is exploring courses. Now, what we've got here is we have got courses and they come from a schools focus, right? So this is not just, how to walk through Word or how to do this or how to do that like that. It's actually more about using this in your classroom. And you can do a search. Like, for example, if I wanted to look up something around coding, I start to type coding and there's all my courses that are built around coding, right? Or if I wanted to look something like inclusivity, you can see that I've got courses here around inclusivity. Now, one in particular, because we're looking at 365, you can see here there's a number of courses, and one in particular I want to draw your attention to is this one here, which is Streamline Efficiency with Office 365 Apps. So this course here is a 1-hour course. When you do this course, you can come and go as slowly as you want, as often as you want, as long as you complete the whole course, then you will be awarded 1 hour worth of PD. All right. Now, we also have groups of courses, and these are called our learning paths, right? So if I click here on Browse Learning Paths, these are the groups of courses, as I said. So if I wanted to look up something like Office, you can see here there's a series of these courses or of these learning paths, and one in particular I want to draw your attention to is Office 365 Teacher Academy. Now look at this, it is nearly 12 hours worth of PD, and what we've done is we've built the courses together one after the other. We've put them in the order that we think is going to be relevant to you, in the sense that they build on the content of the one before. You don't have to do them in order, but you can. And when you do all these courses, then you'll be awarded, as I said, with about 12 hours worth of PD. But look at some of these things. Definitely there's a product focus here, streamlining your efficiency. But then we have things like workforce ready skills, teachers authoring accessible content, transforming learning initiatives, etc. All right, so definitely the product is there, but it's all about giving the product a purpose in the education space. And this one in particular, Microsoft Forms, creating authentic assessments, absolutely brilliant course. So at the end of this course today, if you have your appetite whet for learning more about Office 365 and Microsoft 365, then please jump into this course here, Office 365 Teacher Academy, and you can find that again at education.microsoft.com. Now, the cool thing about these courses are, when you come to the website, if you sign in and you can just use your school email address and password to join up, once you've done that, it will start to record everything that you've done, okay? So it will actually remember all the courses that you've done. It'll remember the start time, the finish time, the amount of hours, etc. And here's something really cool. Because they meet the AITSL standards, these will count as your VIT required hours, okay? So you can use these courses to actually meet your PD requirements for the Victorian Institute of Teachers, okay? So keep that in mind. No more having to jump in the car and, you know, go down the road and do a PD or whatever it is that you used to do back in the day. Now you can do it online. As a matter of fact, you've been able to do it online for a long time. So today's courses, right? Today, what we're going to explore, at the end of this, I want you to come back to this website, go into Learning Paths and look up that one on, I just type in here Office, and it's called Office 365 Teacher Academy, all right? That's going to be a really cool course for you to do. Now, the focus today is going to be about using this in a remote context and also in a hybrid blended context, meaning, you know, that at some point soon we're going to be back at school, we're going to have some kids that are going to be not there and some kids that are going to be there, etc. So yes, we're going to take a remote focus now, but I want you to look at this as how you could use this in a blended model, and also how you could use this to make your life easier when we're back at school, okay? So it's not just about remote access. I hope that's clear. Okay, let's keep moving. So let's talk about Office, right? So if I was in front of you all now and I said, everyone put up their hands who uses Office on a daily basis at work, I would probably find something like 99% of you, or even 99 point something percent of you, are going to put your hand up, especially when we count Outlook as part of Office, which it is. So you're using Outlook all the time to check your email. So everybody uses Office. And as I said, there's some sort of, 90 something percent saturation for Office, not just in schools, but also in business. So Office that we know and love, that's the fully installed version of Office, okay? So maybe you're using Office 2016 or Office 2019 or another version of Office. Now, I just want to point out that this version of Office doesn't change. In other words, when you're using Office 2016, which was released in 2015, by the way, just to confuse us, that is now a 5-year-old version of Office. And that 5-year-old version of Office has no feature updates or anything like that. It's the same version of Office. So if you're on 2016, that's a very old version of Office. Okay, now we have another version of Office that lives in the cloud, that lives in the browser, calling that Office 365. Okay, so that's our version of Office that comes through the browser. So we don't have to install software. We can just use our browser, whether that's Chrome or Edge or whatever it is you're using, and you can access Word online, PowerPoint online, and these other things. And that's definitely what we're going to explore today. Okay, but there is another level, and it's called Microsoft 365 apps. Now, the Microsoft 365 apps, they incorporate the best of 365 and the best of Office 2019. Now, what we've done is this is a subscription service. And what it means is, whereas Office 2019 doesn't improve, doesn't get any feature updates, it's a stagnant, static copy. What happens with Microsoft 365 is every time we do a features release, it gets updated into there for you. Okay, now this is not sales, because what I want to point out to you is you as a DET teacher, a Victorian Department of Education teacher, as a matter of fact, almost every teacher in the country has access to this 5 free copies of Microsoft 365. That is fully installed down on your machine. I'm going to show you how to access that in a minute. But that's, you know, $100 and something worth of software that you can put on your PC, you can put on your Mac, you can put on your home machine, home PC, home Mac, 5 free copies. All right. So again, yes, you're probably using Office 2016. I want to encourage you to upgrade to Microsoft 365 apps, and it's free. And I'm going to show you how to do that. But the other thing that's important about this is we have to make sure that the students access it as well, because the students have all had this paid for them as well. Okay, so what that means is if we're going to be delivering remote and hybrid lessons and even lessons back into the school, and we want the students to be getting the best of everything and the most capable and feature-rich versions of Office, then we want to make sure that they're accessing Microsoft 365 apps and that they're accessing their 5 free copies so they can share it with their family members and that kind of thing as well. So I want to share with you, right? My wife was a department teacher. She had 5 free copies. My 2 kids are in department schools and they had 5 free copies. And when I was a department teacher, I had 5 free copies as well. So that was 20 free copies of Office that we could have installed down on our local machines. And once upon a time, we didn't even know that it was there. All right, but now you do. So you came to this webinar and you're going to walk away with $hundreds worth of free software. All right, so how do we get this and how do we get into Office 365? Well, we need to sign in. Now, there's a couple of things to point out. If you are using EduMail, all right, so that is you're using your EduMail email, you're going to have to sign into Office not using EduMail. You're going to have to use your TO number at education.vic.gov.au. Okay, so if you're using EduMail, your TO number at education.vic.gov.au. Now, there's going to be some of you, you've already had your email migrated to what's called Exchange Online, and you've already got an education.vic.gov.au email address. Okay, it's probably your name dot surname at. Okay, go ahead and use that one. All right, but again, if you don't have that, please use your TO. Now, some of you are also going to come from schools where you have your own unique email address. I want you to try that first. So you might be, you know, for example, at, your name at, Brunswick Secondary College.vic.gov. Try that first and see if that works. If that doesn't work for you, then come back and use your TO number at education.vic.gov.au. All right, I know that's a little bit confusing, but I want you to make sure that you're able to access. Now, what happens for us is that we come in to office.com. All right, so to sign in, we go to www.office.com. All right, and I'm going to take us there now. I'm going to jump into that. All right, so www.office.com will bring you to a sign-in page. You sign in using all those convoluted email addresses, sorry, that I just gave you then, but you sign in and you'll come to this page here. Okay, now can you see over here, there's an Install Office button. Okay, now if I click that once, I get a drop down. It says Office 365 apps or install other options, right? Now I want to just click on the Office 365 apps. I'm not going to do it now because I've already got that software. Follow the instructions. It'll give you some instructions. You follow those and this will write Microsoft 365 apps down onto your machine. And if you've already got Office 2016 or Office 2019, it'll write over the top of it. Now, if you do hit an error message that's saying there's problems, then you may want to uninstall your current version of Office and then go through this process, all right? But that's how you get your 5 free copies, and that'll work on your PC and your Mac. Now, you may say, what about my iPad and what about my phones? Those apps are free anyway, and you can link further 5 of those to your device, to your account as well, all right? So that's how you get your 5 free copies. Now, while we're here, I want to take you through and show you some of the other cool things that you can do. Now, see this little settings wheel up here? I'm sorry, I should have made my mouse a little bit bigger, but you see this little settings wheel? When you click on the settings wheel, you get the ability, I'm going to click on view all here, you get the ability to change your theme. And this is really good for the kids too, right? The students, to show them that they can actually have a bit of fun and make this however they want it to be, right? This is great for primary. There's some really cool ones in there. All right, so go ahead and pick one of those. Some of your settings down here may be grayed out. Some of them might be available depending on the way your school's set up, but you can change into dark mode, all right, which is kind of cool and kind of trendy. It'll also save your monitor life and your battery as well if you're on a laptop. So dark mode's there for you if you want to access that. But again, have a bit of fun, tell the kids all about how they can access this and personalize it as well. Now you can see here I've got these apps, okay? Now you can see there's ones that you know and love, Outlook, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, OneNote perhaps. These are the ones that you know and love. Now these are not the ones that are installed down on your machine. This is Office 365 in the cloud, okay? So these are the ones that we're using through our browser. But these are not all our apps. Have a look here. When I click on all apps, I've actually got a huge list of apps and some things that I've probably never even seen before and may never ever use, but they're still there for me to access if I want to get my head around it and learn all about them. Okay, not everything that you've got on your machine like OneNote and Word, etc. They will all be there, but some of these are web-only apps as well. Now, can you see up here, I've got a little app launcher, okay? So when I click on my app launcher, and remembering that it's not your Chrome, if you're using Chrome, the Chrome one lives up here, all right? This one's just here. Now, when I click on that, I've got this little Office 365 button here, link here, that will take me back to Office 365. So if I'm to the start page, so if I'm playing around in some other part of Office and I get a bit lost, it's easy. I just come over here to the app launcher, click on Office 365, and that will take me back to my start page. Now, the other thing too is you can see when I do my app launcher, all my apps come up, right? Well, some of my apps come up, probably the ones I'm most likely looking for, but I can still click on all apps here and I can access them from there. All right, so that's pretty cool. Now I'm going to take us back to our Office 365 start page. All right, so there's our Office 365 start page, easy to find, app launcher, Office 365, or I just come up to my URL bar here and just type in www.office.com. All right, now here's Word Online, and Word Online is one that you're probably, at least in terms of Word, it's one that you use all the time, and you're going to see that Word Online really is Word Online is quite a lot like the normal version of Word that you're used to. All right, so I'm going to click on that. Sorry, I got a bit lost there. There you go. So we're going to click on that, and here I am at my Word Online start page. I'm going to create a new blank document. Okay, I'm going to let, I'm going to let that load. And for those of you that are using the more up-to-date version of Word, this is going to look very, very familiar to you, okay? So I've got all my different tabs here. I've got my Home tab, I've got my Insert tab, layout, references. It does a lot of what most of us want Word to do, all right? So what I'm going to show you is I'm going to show you some of the cool things that you can do. If I'm here and I want to maybe insert a table, just like I would on Word, what I could do is I can click here, insert table, grab a table, bang, it's in my document, all right? And I can, you know, bold, italic, underline, highlight, all those sort of things. Now, if this doesn't do what I'm wanting it to do because there's a feature that might be missing from the online version, can you see up here where it says open in desktop app? I can click on that, and then it will open the full version of Word on my machine. If it's the first time you've done that, it might ask you to sign in, but once you've signed in once, you won't need to do it again. All right, the other cool thing about this is it's auto save. So you notice there's no save button, right? So as I make these changes, and in this case, I'm going to rename this document. I'm going to call it VIC DET webinar, okay? Ask me where I want to save it. I'm just going to save it just straight into my OneDrive space. and there it is automatically saved. All right, so I can throw in things like, you know, pictures and all that kind of stuff, just like I can in my normal version of Word. All right, so that's what that looks like. Now, the next thing I want to do is I want to show you how we can collaborate and how we can share, okay, directly from Office 365. So this is the browser-based stuff, all right? So what I can do is, if I wanted to share this document with my students, or I wanted to share it with other teachers, what I can do is I can come up here and click on the share button. All right, now what's going to happen inside the department, you're going to see people in the Department of Education Victoria with the link. It's going to be like that. It's not going to say MSAU EDU01. That's just my tenant, but yours will say Vic Department. Now, what that means is you are able to share this document with anybody inside the department. The department has locked down your ability to share externally. You can only share with teachers and students and other people inside the department. Okay, keep that in mind. So this will be grayed out. But what I can do is I can allow editing. That is, do I want people to be able to type on my document, or do I want to make it read only? The other thing I can do is I can block them from downloading. So I might share this as a document that I want them to be able to see, but I don't want them to download copies and, you know, make 1 million copies and the document has a life of its own. Instead, I can block that from happening. But in this case, I'm going to make sure that people can actually edit. All right. Now, the other thing is I need to start looking for the people that I want to share with. So I've got a colleague of mine. His name is Travis. As I start typing his name, there he comes up. So you can look for people in the department by TO number, by first name and surname, and by email address. All right. There's 3 different ways that you can find people in the department. But I'm going to add Travis to that document. And then let's say I've got a student in my group. Her name is Megan. There she is, Megan Bowen. So I'm going to add Megan, bang, 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 add all my students, and then I click send. Now they are going to get an email notification inviting them to this document. All right, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. Now, the next thing I want to share with you is, look at this. Those of you that are playing around in the Google space, this is going to look very familiar to you. We've been doing it for nearly 10 years as well. The ability to actually collaborate on the document. So you can see people are there in real time. You can see what each other are doing. You can hover over those little pegs and it'll show the names of the people that that are working. So no more, you know, one access, one person. It is now multiple access, multiple people being on the document in real time. Okay, so that's what happens when we share. Okay, so that's collaboration. Now, the next thing I guess I want to talk to you about is OneDrive. Okay, so you can see there, every Office file that you've ever created now has the potential to be collaborative. If documents are stored only on our local device and not in the cloud, we can't collaborate, we can't share. But when we store them in OneDrive and possibly on our machine as well, now we can open it up to everybody else. So that's key. If we want to have that collaborative experience, we have to get our heads around OneDrive. Now, the second thing about OneDrive that's really powerful, look at this, 5 terabyte of storage per user. Okay, so that's a whole heap of space, probably 10 to 20 times the amount of space that you have on your laptop right now. Okay, so there's collaboration, there's storage and backup and all kinds of really cool stuff that's going on in OneDrive. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you into OneDrive. All right, so OneDrive's really easy to find. I'm going to come back out here. I'm going to get rid of that document. I'm going to come back out here to my app launcher. Now I could go into Office 365 and then just find OneDrive on the start page, but look, OneDrive is sitting right here. So again, OneDrive is my personal storage in the cloud. Okay, now have a look here. I've got some folders and I've got some files. Okay, so just like if I was in Finder on my Mac, or if I was on File Explorer or File Manager on my PC, then you know, I've got my folders, and inside those folders I could have files and folders, etc. It's like my little personal my document space, but living in the cloud. Now I'm going to let you in on a little secret. The cloud is, the cloud is not in the sky. The cloud is actually 2 data centers, at least for us in Microsoft space, 2 data centers, one in Sydney and one in Melbourne. So what it means is your files are backed up 3 times in Sydney and 3 times in Melbourne in these huge data centers. Okay. So when we access our files in OneDrive, we're actually pulling them down from a real place, okay? So we've got it backed up more than once. We've got it backed up 6 times, okay? And it's very, very secure. Now you can see here I'm clicking here on my files, and these are all my files, all right? Now, if I come down into one of my earlier documents, you can see I've got these little ellipses here, right? And when I hover over it, I get a bit of a preview. It tells me all about, you know, the document, etc. But if I click on the ellipses, look what happens. I get this drop-down menu here of all these different things I can do. I can open the document, I can preview the document, I could share it, which is what we just did without having to open. I can copy the share link if I want. I can manage access. I can have a look at who I've shared this with, and do I want to retract that, etc. I can download it, delete it, move it, copy it, etc. But the one I really want to share with you is this one here called version history. So look what happens when I click on that. Now, you know how it is when you have a document and then someone messes it up, right? That document, you know, on your computer or on the shared drive, there's nothing you can do necessarily to access, you know, the previous versions, but version history allows us to do exactly that. So this is my most up-to-date version, which was accessed on the 19th, but I've got the previous editions, okay? So I can click on that and I can open that file. I could restore that so that this version will become the most up-to-date version, and I can even delete that. And that's really key when we're working with students, especially remotely or in a hybrid blended learning environment, because students may accidentally or even on purpose mess up our collaborative documents. So it's really good to be able to go back and find a version before the changes were made and restore that. All right. So putting things in OneDrive, it's not just about storage, it's not just about collaboration. There's all these other things that we can do with it as well. So that's in my files. But look over here, can you see this here, shared? So I'm going to click on shared. There's 2 little tabs up here. One is shared with me. That is, other people have shared this document directly with me, okay? So these people, like here we can see Amanda has shared this document with me, Trent has shared that document with me, etc. And look, a long time ago, 2018, he shared that with me. But these are documents that are shared with me, so I can be accessing those. But look here, shared by you. So this is actually telling me, Troy, these are the documents that you have actually shared with other people. And I may have done that a really long time ago. So I might actually want to manage access and remove that access, etc. So it's a really good thing to see that you've got the ability to check the documents that are shared with you and the documents that are shared by you. The other thing that we've got is a recycle bin. So even if you delete it off your local machine and you empty your recycle bin, there's still a copy in the cloud in the recycle bin up here. So you've got that extra level of protection if you accidentally or even on purpose delete files. All right, so my files, shared, and recycle bin. And remember that version history. It can be a lifesaver more often than not. All right, let's keep moving. Now, the other thing I want to share with you is how to set up your OneDrive on your local machine. And here's what I mean by that. Remember how we saw before I had those folders and those files. Here they are locally on my machine. Have a look. If I bring my mouse down here gently to the bottom here, see this little yellow folder here, right? That's where you go to access your files, right? And your folders. What I've done is I've actually built OneDrive or linked OneDrive into my local device. So instead of having 3 copies in Sydney, 3 copies in Melbourne, I've got 3 copies in Sydney, 3 copies in Melbourne, and 1 copy on my local device wherever I happen to be. All right. So in this case, it's another one in Melbourne, but I could be in Adelaide, I could be in Paris, I could be in wherever. Now, you can see here that when I come back into my OneDrive, come back into my files, there's all my files, there's all my folders, there's all my files. Come back here, same thing, okay? It's identical. But the difference here is because these are locally on my machine, if I was to click on them here, it's going to open the full version of Word or PowerPoint or whatever it is that I happen to be using. If I right click, I can view it online if I want, but if I just double click it, it will actually open in the full version. So there's that integration between the full version and the cloud-based version. Now I want to point something else out to you. Can you see, might be a bit hard for you guys to see, but can you see there's this little people next to some of these. That's reminding me that I've shared them, okay? And I can access again, if I right click, I can check my access again, right? Just like I could online, but I can be doing it from down on my local machine. All right, so that's good to remember. So it's always pointing out to you, hey, don't forget you've shared these. Can you see I've got these ticks next to some of my files? And I've also got little clouds. Now, what the cloud means is this is stored in the cloud only. It is not stored on my local device. So if I lose the internet, I cannot access those folders or files. But where it's got a tick, that tick means that it's fully accessible in the cloud and as well as my local machine. Now you may be asking, well, Troy, why would you want to have some things in the cloud only and some things locally? A couple of reasons. First of all, my hard drive does not have 5 terabyte of storage. So I'm just not going to have as much room locally as I do up in the cloud. So what I can do is if I think a document's not so important, I don't need it all the time, what I do is I right click it, and then what I do is I click on free up space, okay? So let's take one that's already, yep, so I'm going to click on this one, and you can see here free up space. I click on that, and then it turns into a little cloud, all right? So now it's only in the cloud. However, if a document's important and I want it to be local, what I can do is I can right click, and then I click always keep on the device. Okay, now it's updating, and there it goes, it turns into a green tick. So you could grab all your files at once, right click, and you could say always keep on the device or free up space, right? It's really easy to do. My advice to you is if a document is important to you and you need it, then just make sure that it's in the cloud and on your local device. But if it's archives and 2014 files and all that kind of stuff, you don't need to slow your machine down by having the hard drive full, because it will move slower if the hard drive's full. So throw all those up into the cloud, all right? It's going to make your life a little bit easier. Now, there's another thing I want to point out to you. Actually, before I do that, I'll tell you, you can get advice on how to set that up through your PC or your Mac for those links there, okay? And I'll make sure that I throw these ones into the chat at some point today. So at the end of this, hang around and we should throw those in. Otherwise, I'll make sure that they're actually on the YouTube recording. I'll make sure that they're in the links section of the YouTube recording as well. Okay, let's keep moving. So the next thing I want to talk to you about is how to sync your important folders to OneDrive. So we have a thing called known folder move, or KFM. This is only for Windows users, all right? But what happens is you can actually sync your desktop, your documents, and your pictures. Now, I'll show you why that's important. Because down here on my machine, I've got desktop, documents, and pictures. If I save things in there, it is not going to be saved into the cloud because it's not in OneDrive. But if I do the KFM move, all right, what happens is desktop, documents, and pictures are synced to OneDrive, and that means now down here, desktop, documents, and pictures is now connected to desktop, documents, and pictures in here. Okay, so they and those are exactly the same. All right, so I want you to keep that in mind. Go through and have a read of that a little bit later. Again, you can find, if you can't find the link at a later point, then what you can do is you can just open up your favorite search engine, just type in OneDrive KFM, and you'll find that article. And as a matter of fact, the same goes for your OneDrive sync client. So you just open up your favorite search engine, type in OneDrive sync client setup, and I promise you, you'll find heaps of articles and heaps of how-tos setting that up for you as well. I'm just worried in case we don't get the links to you in time. Okay, let's talk about Teams. So Teams for Education, we did have our last webinar, which is available for you at aka.ms/TroyYT. I'll share that link with you later. That is our my YouTube channel, which has got all the recordings that I've done with the department. Okay, but the first webinar there is all about Teams and how to use Teams. So please go back and learn all about that. But what I want to do for you now is I'm actually going to show you, I'm going to come here, click on my app launcher. I'm going to find Teams. I just want to show you the integration of Teams, okay, and what you can do. So here I am in a class team, but this could be a work collaboration team. It could be any kind of team, all right? Now, when I click here on my files, all right, these are my shared files. So this is shared files for everybody inside the team. I can create folders, okay, easy to do, but I can create a Word document, okay? So I'm going to call this one VIC DET number 2, create. Now look what's happening. Inside Teams, I've got my Office 365 experience happening inside Teams. I don't have to go out into the browser, into another app or anything like that. Word Online is opening up for me inside there. And when I close it, look what happens. There's that document that we just created. So I can create new Word documents, Excel documents, PowerPoint, etc., all from inside Teams. The other thing I can do is I can bring those documents as tabs across the top of my team, all right, and across the top of my channel. So you can see here I can have Planner and PowerPoint and Stream and all these other kinds of things in there as well, all right? So there's no need to share when we build it inside Teams. The other thing is over here, when I click on Files, you can see this is where my personal OneDrive lives. So these are all the shared files that everybody's got access to, but these are my personal OneDrive files over here. All right, so we're bringing that Office 365 experience down into Teams. So anything that you can do in that Office 365 experience, you can bring into Teams, especially because you've got the ability to bring in anything that's got a web app can come in, even if there's not a dedicated app. So pretty cool. All right, let's keep moving. So for next steps, remember that website, aka.ms/Microsoft Remote Learning. We also have a series of support documentation for you, support.microsoft.com/education, and also those online courses. Now, remember what I told you. I want to come back into that online course, specifically the one that I showed you before, because this is where you can go and learn. So in the Educator Center, I come down to courses, actually, wrong one, come down to learning paths, and then I'm going to type in 365. And this one here, Office 365 Teacher Academy. This is where you can go and learn all about the cool things you can do beyond a sort of 45-minute webinar. All right. The other thing I want to share with you is, again, apologies, it's not the slides and recordings, it's just the recordings, but it's aka.ms/TroyYT. That is our YouTube channel, or my YouTube channel, with all my Victorian Department of Education recordings in there for you. And again, I'll make sure that the links from these slides are actually there for you in those recordings. So if there's things that you want to explore, they will actually be there for you. Okay. The other thing is connecting to us through our newsletter. You can subscribe to our MEC newsletter, aka.ms/MEC newsletter. Throw that into your browser and you'll be taken to a subscription page. And lastly, before we open up and find out if there's any questions, you can find me on social media. So if you are on Twitter, that's me there, Hoja Saram. If you're looking for me on LinkedIn, just type in Troy Waller. Same with Facebook, just type in Troy Waller Microsoft and look for this little avatar. That's how you know that it's me, okay, and not some other Troy Waller. You'll probably see Troy Waller Auto Body, which is an American mechanic. That's not me. So you'll look for that one, okay, and then you'll find me. Now, the reason I'm advertising this to you is not because I collect people on social media, but because these are my professional accounts. And what I do is I push out all the latest, greatest stuff that I come across. I'm very prolific on those 3 platforms. The latest, greatest stuff for you around education technology, and of course, Microsoft. I push out that stuff all the time. So please look me up, add me, and then you will, or follow me, and then you'll be able to see that stuff appear in your feed. All right, now I'm going to see from the lovely Linda if there are in fact any burning questions before we call it a night.
Yes, thank you, Troy. Just a few couple last questions that I didn't know the answer myself. Yep. One was just to make sure you aren't able to see the version number appear within the document when you go back to the version history.
No, you can't.
Yes. And last question was, is this only for government schools as someone works for a Catholic school?
Yep, certainly. So Catholic schools, sorry, I shouldn't say certainly. The answer is no, it's available to you and you can certainly access it. So if you're from a Catholic school, if you're from Catholic education in Melbourne, Office 365 subscriptions have been made available to every single Catholic school under the CEM banner. So just reach out to your IT person at your school, or if he or she doesn't know about that, then please reach out to the IT services at Catholic Education Melbourne and they should be able to answer you. If you are coming from a school outside of that Catholic diocese, many dioceses actually do make it available to their schools, so you just need to reach out to them and find out how to access it. Okay.
Yes. One last question addressed earlier, and I thought that I answered this as well, but someone was just waiting on their VIT registration and they don't have an EduMail just yet. Was it possible for them to access these Teacher Academy courses and Microsoft 365 apps using the Outlook email? And I said yes, but it'll be limited as it's not an education Microsoft 365. Did you want to elaborate on that?
So what they're asking is, in terms of the Office 365 Educator Center, the Microsoft Educator Center, you can definitely access everything now. But in terms of having Office 365 access, until you get a school email address, you're not going to be able to access it for free. However, let me talk to you about this one here called live.com. So if I type in here live.com, okay, now this is going to take us into our emails, but live.com is not just about Outlook, it's actually about the basics of Office Online, okay? So you can come in here, sign up with your regular email address. You can use Outlook, but you can also sign up with another email address as well. And when you sign in, you'll actually see there will be a little app launcher here. It'll be limited in what you can do, but you will be able to access some of those tools. But the best thing to do is when you get a job, obviously you start using the full 365, which is going to be provided to you by your school.
Thank you, Troy.
No worries.
For the Q&A.
Okay, wonderful. All right, so please remember, reach out to me on social media if I can help you. But the other thing I wanted to remind you of was, and just give me a moment, I'm just going to find this. If you want today's recording, please visit us there and I'll make sure that I have the links. But if you've got any further questions, you might be watching this as a recording and you've got further questions, pop into aka.ms/Microsoft Remote Learning. You'll see there's a Q&A link on there and you can shoot your questions through to us that way. All right. So I'm going to call it there. Thanks very much for being a part of this. Don't forget to pay close attention to further webinars that are going to be popping up, but also go back and access our previous ones. I'm Troy, and I'm sure Linda's going to say goodbye as well.
Yes, thank you everyone for attending this session.
Yeah, cool. All right. Thanks, guys, and we'll see you next time.